So here we are again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Johnson. I'm the president of LRES, and I'm unbelievably delighted to be here with all of you today. Thank you for joining us. We have got an exceptional program put together for you today with an unbelievably talented guitarist, Michael Thompson, who I'll introduce more formally in just a few minutes. Before we get into all of that, though, I do want to offer a very special thank you to a few key people. Obviously, my good friend, business partner, and the CEO of LRES, Roger Bean. Roger, we appreciate your continued sponsorship of this Backstage Pass series. And if you're with your beautiful bride, Molly, please give her my best as well. Thank you. Also want to give a shout out to the entire LRES team. There are so many talented managers I'm fortunate to work with. I think of Martha, I think of Jerry, I think of Alex out in Vegas, I think of Julie, Emily. Just goes on and on. Denise, I'm sure I'm missing people, Scott, etc. Thank you guys for everything you do every day. I also want to thank my good friend who's dialing in from Paso Robles, from the Hope Family Winery. Tara, you out there?
I'm here. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, so nice to see you again, and certainly we appreciate your participation. I want to say thank you for joining us. Certainly thank you to the whole crew up there for co-sponsoring this event. We always appreciate it. And I have to once again thank you. I'm going to show this bottle right now. This is my lucky bottle, Austin Hope Cabernet Reserve. So thank you for shipping that down to me and Michael. We're going to take it for a taste drive in just a little bit.
Oh, that sounds good. Thanks so much.
We are excited.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. A few other things I want to mention before we get into the program. One is we took a little sneak peek in terms of who's in our audience today, and I'm thrilled to see so many clients, colleagues, friends, from around the mortgage industry. So thank you for dialing in. That's exciting for us, and hopefully we'll have some fun today. If you have questions, please feel free to submit them, and we'll read off what we can. I also want to thank my production team. I don't think I got there yet, but we've got a great crew over here just kind of managing and monitoring the system. Jill, Christina, Matt, and Freddie, thank you guys for everything you do. Also want to recognize a couple of new groups we invited this time. We have quite a few real estate agents and brokers around the country who have dialed in. I want to say thank you to all of you hardworking real estate agents and brokers. I think 2020 was a banner year as you watched volumes of houses, home sales increase. So good for you. We also have another very, very important group to LRES who signed in today, and that's the appraisers. And for all of you appraisers out there, if I could leave you with a few thoughts as you enjoy the show today, hopefully enjoy it. At LRES, we recognize what 2020 was for you, a little bit different world. We know it was tough from a regulatory standpoint. We know it was tough from a forms standpoint. We know it was tough because the volume doubled, and you appraisers worked hard. You worked nights and weekends. We recognize that. We appreciate it. And now you're saddled with values skyrocketing, right? From 5% up to 30% jumps in just a short period of time. And you've got to make that all work. So if I could leave the appraisers with one key message from LRES, we appreciate you guys. Just know that. If you have any questions about who we are or how we do things, you want to make things better, call me directly, and I'll take care of you. Want to give a special shout out to Brianna, who snuck into California this past weekend. That was awesome, and my stomach is still sore. And finally, I want to give a very special hello to my brother Bill. And I'm going off script a little bit, but brother Bill and his wife Vivian were out in Arizona last week, actually 2 weeks ago, driving down a road and somehow got rear-ended by somebody going 100 miles an hour. Vivian was broken up a little bit. Bill was broken up a lot, and he was in ICU for a period, went through a lot of extensive back surgery, and he's come out like a rock star. So, Billy, good for you. And I did appreciate your text as Billy was leaving the hospital. He said, Mark, please do not have that show before I leave the hospital. I want to make sure I see it. So, Billy, there you are. Here I am. And stay strong, brother. Thank you. I appreciate the good wishes. All right. So let's move on to our artist. We have been fortunate with our Backstage Pass series to have really the most phenomenal artists, I'm going to say, in the planet participate with us. We started out with Greg Fillinganes, who, for example, was Stevie Wonder's musical director and Michael Jackson's musical director. We had Nathan East, and Nathan is arguably the most recorded bassist in the history of music. It's been documented. He played on over 2,000 records. Unbelievable musician. Last month we had Steve Ferroni, who was just hilarious, fun. He's played on a huge volume of records himself. He also has a distinguished role as being one of Tom Petty's Heartbreakers. And he's been a heartbreaker for 25 years and just a funny, gentle giant. Really enjoyed visiting with Steve. And now I want to turn to my other friend who's on guitars. He is just a wonderful man. He's known for being a great guitarist, a great technician. He's also really known for being an unbelievably creative guitarist. He has sounds just emerge that you say, that doesn't sound like a guitar. It sounds like something unique and special. So before I go on and on, let me just stop here and introduce my friend and now your friend, Mr. Michael Thompson. Oh my gosh. You are awesome.
Too old to rock? No, never.
Now, Michael, I have to ask you, do you fully appreciate that every man and probably most women who are watching this wanted to be you and maybe still do at some point in their lives? Everybody wants to be a lead guitarist.
I think that's a fair thing to say. Because I've noticed in other fields, like someone could be amazing at what they do. Actually, I was thinking about today, I did this session in like the early 90s for this guy named Jude Cole. and he was like best friends with Kiefer Sutherland, right? And so Kiefer was at the session, right? And I was doing a solo on this guy's record, like a rock solo, right? And Kiefer, I remember he had just recently, like Julia Roberts, he was with Julia Roberts, and she had just ditched him or something like that. And after I finished the solo, he said, "Man, I'd give everything I got to be able to do that," because he's a guitar.
And that's that's right.
Yeah, and he said, "I'd still have the girl." And I thought, like, wow, man, people, this amazing, super well-known actor was like saying, kiddingly, but I'd trade it all to be able to do that,
That is awesome. Well, I'm with Kiefer. Now, Kiefer's been obviously pretty successful. I'm with him. Hey, so by the way, speaking of successful, I mean, look at your office. I'm looking at your office behind you.
Yeah.
Where are we right now?
We're in my little room that is my studio that I do 99%. When I'm not doing a Mark Johnson session, I'm here in the studio working on records. It's become, it went from some of the time to like more of the time to all the time in the last, say 10 years. So this is where I do all my work. And most of the time I do it alone. I produce myself and people send me tracks. And so that's where we are. And I got all my guitars that I got to thank my wife for giving me a guitar every Christmas for like 30 years.
That's a good wife. I hope my wife is listening.
It's a great wife. And every year I think, okay, maybe this year I won't get one, but this is this year's guitar. All right.
We're going to have to walk through every guitar. Michael, we've got 5 hours that we're going to try to compress into an hour, but we may have to do 2 sessions. Hey, I'm going to go off script a little bit. I found a quote, and it says here, this was a magazine that was covering you, and this is before COVID. And they said, Thompson's ability and sensibilities are so trusted that these days many artists and producers just drop their songs off at your house for your home studio and let him add whatever he wants.
Yeah. And that comes through liking or loving what I did in the past where they weren't there and they just let me do my thing. And then it became, for the next song they sent me, it's like, man, just do your thing. And that's high praise. And
sure,
especially from people like, the bigger producers and stuff that I'm usually in the room with them, to be able to trust you with that you're going to take their tune to I try to take it to like another level. Otherwise, what am I here for,
Well, so we're going to ask you to take it to another level in a few minutes, but we did find a picture of you early in your studio career, and we're going to pop this up on the screen. Now look at that stud right there.
Oh man, come back.
Look at that. Look at that hairdo. I love it.
That was my hair for pretty much until about 10 years ago when I decided to just have white hair and be an old man. That was my hair. My parents gave up trying to make me cut my hair in 10th grade. And then I just let it grow.
It grow.
I was, a rocker.
So, Michael, what I've learned about you, and I've learned more of this in the last month or so, is you are so humble. You're such a nice, decent, next door neighbor kind of guy. But then when I go out on the internet and say, okay, so let's see if he's really been on this record. Let's see if he's been on that record. Do you have any assessment of how many top records you've been on? And let me show you. Let me say this. I'm going to publish a list right now of top songs I could find. But every time I checked, I found more.
Right. That was, I know, because my daughter-in-law is a videographer and stuff, and she put together this hits video that I see a lot of those songs are from that thing, because we were just dealing with #1 songs, and I remember sending it to David Foster and him saying, wow, man, that's because a lot of the tunes he produced and stuff, he said, but you didn't mention all the songs, and I was like, I guess I just, the ones that came to mind I put on there. But
well, look at these names. Michael Bolton, that was a huge song for him. When a Man Loves a Woman. Yeah. Gloria, there you are.
It was a big song for me too, because that was the beginning of playing on hits. I had played on like that Gloria Estefan thing and a couple of other. I have that Tiffany song on there. It was a horrible song,
Right.
and it was just a goofy song, but it did get to number one. And it was like a guitar solo on it and stuff. You know, it's kind of not my. I wouldn't lead with that song, but the Michael Bolton thing was really big because I got recommended. It was at that point in my career where enough people had sort of been hearing my name that I could get recommended for something like that, and I went in and he loved it, and his guitar players have had to play that part for like 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, you look at all these names. In addition to, it looks like Celine didn't really have a hit without you. It's really amazing how much you did with her.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, people get artists get rightfully superstitious about the people that do.
Oh, they do
play on their records. Even, you know, Celine became incredibly superstitious with, not superstitious, but like this guy Humberto Gatica, who's an incredible engineer. But that first big hit that we all did together with David and Hum and me was The Power of Love. And it was number one for like 11 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
And so she wouldn't do a vocal without Humberto pushing record, you know? So a lot came out of that session. Plus he did a brilliant mix of that tune and stuff, but that's how people want, you know, they want to stick with what works for you. And one of the things that I was sort of fighting against the whole time I was struggling to work my way up the studio ladder is that a producer, you know, uses someone, and if they really like them, they keep using that person. They're part of the team. But when you're the guy on the outside trying to get on the inside, it's frustrating because it's like, you know, to get a chance to work with that, you got to kind of wait for, you know, that person they're using not to be able to make a session. And that's how a number of breaks, if you do call them, happened for me. I was available. I was by the phone. I wasn't on the road. I was like wanting.
That's great. Well, you certainly spend a lot of time in the studio. Hey, let's talk. Two names jump out on me on that list. One was Michael Jackson, They Don't Care About Us.
Yeah.
And I went back and checked on that song because I remember there was like a little screaming, like 500 notes in 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping you tell me that was you.
It was me. And it's funny because I think it's 8 bars or 16 bars, but it's just this crazy, he called it the speed racer section of the song that took me 6 hours, like a double session to do that. And we were going to tape, and we slowed the tape down to half speed. And it was all written out and everything, and I would get it section by section, you know, and then you speed it twice, and you know, the thing. But it took, and I doubled it and harmonized it and stuff like that, and it goes by like that, you know. But it was a piece of work doing that.
Well, just know that kind of stuff just pops out to me, and so I went back and checked. If anybody wants to hear it, it's about just after 2 minutes into the song. So really a cool piece. Now, you were also involved in Eric Clapton's huge hit, Change the World.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. Hey, I found a stat here, and I don't know what year this was, but it says that you were uniquely involved in 5 of the top 11 hits on the Billboard chart at the same time.
One week it came. I mean, it's funny because in the 90s we actually subscribed to Billboard and got it because I was like on hits. You know, you dream about getting to that point. You dream about getting to that point once, but when I hooked up with David Foster, I when I started working with him, he had this second resurgence after his 80s hits. He actually, you know, he had done Chicago and the Tubes and Fire and all that stuff in the early to mid 80s. And when I flukily got the first call to work with him, it was in 88. And I didn't realize it, but he had gone cold for like a few years there. Yeah. According to him, he said he couldn't get arrested for a few years. And so I was part, it all just worked together cosmically great, because I was part of that Celine Power of Love song was what started just a whole string of hits in the 90s, and I was part of it. It was like that thing I always wanted to be, that guy. I'm the guy on the record. He's using me on the next record because he likes what I did on the last record, and so that system worked for me,
Yep.
But,
hey, let's pop up David Foster. I have a picture of him with you. Yep, perfect. Look at you guys, and that's in the same room.
Yeah, in the last, he doesn't really produce records anymore. I do remember him saying he never wanted to see the inside of another studio a couple of years ago. But in the last, say, 10 years, I've done a couple of albums with him in the studio, a Bryan Adams album and a Bublé album and stuff. But no, actually, we did the Bublé album here. He's come here for a few records. And he always likes to be there, and we have a real interaction. I mean, we've always had a real interaction when we work on a track together.
Mm-hmm.
But the very last thing I did, he was doing this tune for a Japanese guy that I guess had been a real long time friend of his, and it was kind of a rock tune thing. But David wasn't able to make the session, and he sent the track over, and I did my thing like I always do for everyone else. I put, 5 or 6 guitar parts and solo and stuff like that. And he sent me the nicest email after that. Just, like, it just felt good to get, he said, man, I really don't have to be there, but, I've always enjoyed being there with you. But, man, you're just, the choice of notes you picked and the choice of parts were just perfect. It was really nice. It felt good after 25 years to get that, validation that I can do it on my own.
Absolutely. Now I used a word with you a few days ago asking about David Foster. And if anybody listening doesn't know, David Foster's been one of the top music producers in our lifetime, one of 3 or 4. There's just a whole litany of songs he's produced. But I would say this, and Michael, you correct me, but I would say he comes with a reputation of being very fastidious, maybe challenging on every note. And you really said no. He was really wide open in terms of your creativity.
He was. And when we were talking about that, I was saying that I always had the impression that if I ever worked with a guy like David Foster, he would know every single note he wanted me to play and that kind of thing, because I would listen to his records and go, man, it's just so arranged, perfectly, and every part has its, place. So I just had that impression, and it couldn't have been more opposite. And like I was telling you, why have me there if I'm not going to bring something to it that most of the time he wouldn't have thought of that part,
Right.
I mean, every now and then we'd be doing something and we'd get to the chorus of, I remember we were doing that song, I Swear, the All for One tune.
Oh, yeah.
And we got to the chorus and we have been like, we're both Earth, Wind and Fire fanatics and stuff. And he's like, what if you did like an Al McKay kind of part on this chorus? He would say something like that. And then I would come up with a thing and we'd work on it together, sort of thing. But so many of the records, it's just, I was telling you, I'd be home, like working, just getting a new pedal or trying a new sound or something like that. And then I would have a session with him later that day or something. And so when I'm warming up and just getting my sound, I'd be messing around with a certain part or something like that. And he'd go, we got to figure out how we can use that on this record, that kind of thing, So it was sort of an evolving kind of thing. And it's just, I think that, so few people get to do what I've gotten to do. I mean, it's just a small handful of session musicians that got to play on all the records compared to all the incredible musicians there are everywhere,
Yeah.
And it's like, how did I get to do this? But one of the things about it is having that aptitude for hearing a song and knowing what it needs or what you feel it needs, and so much of it has to do with where your heart is. I mean, some guys, they're into stone cold jazz and want to play crazy music or heavy metal or something that's very compartmentalized like that. And I just love so many different kinds of music, but my heart is in pure pop, really, pop rock. I mean, I grew up.
It is.
Yeah, I grew up in my parents' garage playing rock, and pop. It's like, I grew up on Long Island, and every Long Island band you did Motown, you did rock tunes, you did Zeppelin, you did, the full gamut of tunes, So that was always part of my thing. And I just personally love a good hook and love pop music. And so it wasn't a thing where, when I read about the Wrecking Crew and some of the earliest guys, like when they had like Joe Pass and Barney Kessel and those guys doing, and then rock came in and they were like, they're still on a bunch of those records and stuff, but that wasn't their thing. And that wasn't what they were into and stuff. But, for me, it's almost like the highest form of art to have like a great pop hook.
Right.
To me, you keep all the crazy, other stuff, which I love too. But to me, like if you can nail a hook on a pop tune, that it just doesn't get any better.
Well, that answers my question, because when I look at your career, I think of you, when I met you, you were at the Jazz Festival. I want to come back to jazz in just a minute. And then I listened to your own records, and those are all, I'm going to call those all pretty rock. But then I look at all these hits you're on, and they are all right down in that pocket of mainstream pop tunes. Yeah. So I was gonna ask you if you had a favorite, and it sounds like the pop, you gravitate towards the pop, but you love all of it.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm a rocker at heart, and like a lot of guys, I got into funk and jazz. I mean, I went to Berkeley a couple of years, and like the year when I was 18, the year before I went to Berkeley, I got intensely interested in how do you play jazz, and I started studying with this great teacher on Long Island that was actually so good at taking guys that were like good rock players and exposing them to, what you play on changes and what you play on a jazz standard and stuff like that. And so that became a love of mine too. But I can always tell in someone's playing what their first love was,
Right.
There's jazzers or people that's what drew them in, that end up playing rock, but it's a different thing when you're, just when it's in your blood.
Yeah. Hey, so Matt, I'm going to ask you to bring up that picture of Michael in the early years, the Starlicks picture. There he is. There's
come back.
Now,
hair by the pound.
How old were you in this picture?
You know what? I was trying to think. I was about 38 or 9.
I'm going to say you look 21.
Yeah, I did kind of keep a young vibe going there for a while, and that was for this Starlicks video. It's funny because this guy, my friend John Robinson, had done one of the Starlicks did videos with a lot of like guys, Lukather and Abe Laborio and all these things. Uh-huh. And John had done one, and he recommended me to this guy that owned Starlicks, because I was sort of up and coming. It was early-ish 90s, and I hadn't never done one of those videos. And when I found out they don't pay you for the initial like taping of the thing, which takes like an afternoon, right? I was so in the mindset of like having to get paid for everything, because I'd finally sort of worked my way up to like, hey, you got to pay me kind of thing. But I remember the night before the video, I tried to bail on it, and the guy was like, I didn't realize it was like a 3-camera shoot. They had the studio booked and stuff. And the guy's like, trust me, you'll be really glad you did this, right? And so I did it, and all through, I mean, it petered out after a while, but every quarter I'd get like thousands of dollars for that thing,
Yeah.
And I was a little miffed because they decided to do this beginners, because they'd done all the big, Lukather's technique and you know, all the big guys doing their thing, right? But then they had the great idea of doing like beginning rock and beginning rock acoustic. So like beginning had to be in it and rock had to be in it, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was the video I did, which was, you know, kind of basic, me going like, you know, showing how you bend that, and I made some little tracks and I played along and stuff. But the cool thing was they were at all the guitar centers, those videos, right? Mm-hmm. And so a guy, you know, a dad would bring his kid in to get a guitar, an amp, and like, let's get this.
And your video.
Yeah, so it ended up selling really well. So anyway,
that's
but I was
good
a little
stuff.
put off that they didn't want me to do like my groovy technique or something, you know.
So if I say to you, I mean, you mentioned Lukather a few minutes ago, and obviously we have Eric Clapton out there, and you know, Van Halen. Is there one of those guys that you kind of say, you know, I mean, you've done all those styles, you can represent those styles. Is there one of those guys or some of those guys that jump out to you as especially unique from your perspective?
Well, I mean, I had my early influences, which, you know, your earliest influences are the ones I think that really stick with you through life. Sure. Clapton's had such a long, great career, and I've kind of dug every phase of his, you know, where it's taken
evolution.
Us, you know? But that the earliest thing that I heard was Fresh Cream, you know, in '67, and to me, it just doesn't get any better than that. It was Clapton's interpretation of American black blues, right?
Right.
But I love the way that British guys synthesized it into their thing, and British blues rock, like a lot of guitar players, that was the thing that really did it for me. I just loved it, you know, and still to this day, for my soloing, I still think of that, you know, the slow hand, you know, like a, you know, that kind of style as like, it kind of never got any better than that for me. So those initial guys, Hendrix, Jeff Beck especially, I saw him with the first Jeff Beck group when Rod Stewart was singing lead and Ron Wood was on bass and stuff. I saw him at the Fillmore East, which I saw a lot of shows at the Fillmore because I grew up on Long Island, and it was just magical. So that impact that had on me is stuck with me throughout life. I don't know if that was your question.
No, I think that is. So I'm gonna go off script here, Michael. I loved what you just did. So here's my suggestion. I'm gonna throw away all my script and just ask you to play like a little bit of what you think that old English synthesis rock blues is. Give us a few more bars of that before we switch over to the jazz stuff.
You know,
that's back to everybody wanting to be you.
Oh man,
yeah.
I just, you know, to me, it's gotta have the tone. I have the set. I call it the 7 T's. It's like taste, tone, touch, technique, time, and tuning. You gotta kind of be aware of all those things, and it's a life's work, you know. I've been playing the same lick since I was 12 years old, but it can always get better and smoother and put more emotion into it. And to me, I've always been good at when I find something, sticking with it and knowing it's good, you know, as opposed to, okay, that was me then and this is me now and this is, you know,
right.
I'm kind of old school when it comes to that.
Yeah. Hey, so listen, I love what you just did. That's kind of, if I'm going to pick a genre, it's just that whole bluesy, crazy bluesy rock stuff.
Yeah.
But you've made a remarkable impact in the jazz world too. So I'd like to hit on a few of those things. So I'm going to ask you a question, and we can go whichever way you want. What I would suggest, though, is we take a little sip of this wine from Tara, and that would give you a chance, if you want to put on a jazz guitar over there or suit up a jazz guitar, because I'm going to take you down that road a little bit. And maybe it's time to
I'm feeling inspired, right? I'm gonna get in the rock guitar mode for you. Little
Okay.
swoop
Wow.
here. There we go. Now I feel like I'm in place. So
Okay. Well, Tara, I'm going to take a little sip of this wine you sent over here while
yes,
Michael's switching guitars.
And you've got the Reserve Austin Hope Cab. This is basically meant to represent the diversity of soils and microclimates of Paso Robles and our ability to produce a high-end cab. So you have the, big brother to the #2 wine in the country. Yep. #7 wine of the world.
Oh my God.
And you have its big brother. So diving into, what the wines that Austin Hope makes from Paso Robles fruit. I mean, it's pretty incredible what he's done and been able to achieve by really utilizing all this diversity that we have here on the Central Coast of California. Yes.
It is so good. And it's, the awards that you've gotten on this wine have just really been remarkable.
Yeah.
That is smooth. That's what it's supposed to taste like, man.
That's what I'm talking about. Nice, right? We're not going to punch you in the face with abrasive, astringent tannins. We want you to enjoy it, right? We want it to be soft and supple, velvety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice and fruit forward too. We want to experience the fruit in our wines. And that's what Austin's been able to achieve.
Hey, Tara, am I allowed to talk about tomorrow night or no?
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited.
Well, maybe you should. You probably know more than me. I'd rather you talk and me drink.
So Mark and his lovely wife and some friends will be visiting Paso Robles tomorrow. And I will be doing an in-person full wine flight and dinner with them at a friend of ours' villa. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a good night together, get to see each other in person.
Yep.
Hallelujah.
It'll be so nice. Well, listen, thank you. And we're really looking forward to it. Hey, Michael, while you put up your next guitar, I'm going to just rattle off a couple of other names. Have you played with Katy Perry?
Yes. She wasn't there when I played on the record, but yes.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter if she's there. Who cares about that? Cher?
Oh, yes.
Natalie Cole.
Yeah.
Stephen Bishop.
Yes. Bish.
Well, I'm just going to read the rest of these off because I think you're going to say yes. Paul Anka, Neil Diamond, Bob Seger, Phil Collins, Bette Midler, Leanne Rimes, Savage Garden. That's a crazy one. Olivia Newton-John, Meatloaf.
That was a lot of fun, that record. Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye.
Oh my gosh. Who knew? And then you've got, of course, Shania Twain and Mutt Lange.
Yeah.
I don't think the world knows who Mutt Lange is. So it'd be helpful. I know I just asked you to switch guitars, but not that you have to play, but it'd be helpful to tell the world about Mutt Lange.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he was my personal idol that I never thought in a million years I'd get a chance to work with because he's, he was associated with these records that we love, but they were mostly bands. And then when he started doing Shania's record, he used a guy named Dan Huff, who was fantastic. And all through the 80s, I just idolized Mutt Lange. I mean, we used to sit and listen to those Def Leppard records and, AC/DC, but Def Leppard, like Hysteria, like this is perfect rock and roll. These records, man, if I could ever be in the same room with this guy, it'd be incredible. And so fast forward about I think it was like 2002 or 3. I came home and there was a message on my machine. That was back when there was a little cassette on the message machine. And I was like, "Hi, Michael, this is Mutt Lange. I wondered if you'd be interested in working with me on my wife's album."
As if there's other ones.
Let me think.
How flattering.
It was unbelievable. And I think I saved that little mini cassette that he said. He said, "I've been aware of you for quite some time." He was so gentlemanly through the whole thing. And he's not like, so-and-so recommended you, so maybe I'll give you a try kind of thing at all. He just was giving me full props, like he was aware of my work and stuff, which always feels incredible. There's always someone behind every recommendation and every call. So the whole time that I was started working with him, I'm thinking I only know two people that actually work with, actually three people, Michael Bolton, Brian Adams, and Dan Huff, the guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, maybe Dan recommended me and stuff. And so that whole first week working with Mutt, I'm wondering, like, I wonder who it was. And so we were in the studio in Milan, Italy, the first week that we did. And then I went to Switzerland to do the rest of the record, another like 10 days there and stuff. But it was a little cramped, and there was like a sofa right behind me. And I was set up with all my gear and everything. And Mutt would be sitting right behind me, like playing one of my guitars, just playing some simple little part. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the next part that he's going to want me to try. So anyway, he would be on the phone every now and then. I mean, for being such a sort of a, I mean, he's known for being not like a hermit, but just like there's like two pictures of him in the world. You know, he doesn't take pictures with people. He doesn't do a whole, he never does, these kind of things and stuff. And so he's on the phone, and I hear him saying, yeah, he's really as good as you said he is. And he's made my demos sound like records. It's just the most complimentary thing in the world.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm thinking, man, I wonder who he's on the phone with. And so he got off the phone and he said, oh yeah, that was Brian Adams.
Brian Adams.
He's the one that recommended me, recommend. So it was like, this can't get any better,
Yeah. Unbelievable.
That felt really good. I was just like, so I've been able to,
And what about Babyface? You were on some of his records.
Yeah, that was another major. I mean, to me, it was, there's a lot of great producers, and I got to work with a nice handful of them. But the three main ones in the world to me were David, Babyface, and Mutt Lange. Just like these guys. And in the 90s, Kenny Babyface just owned the charts. He was like David, even more so though, because Kenny he was writing all the tunes too,
right. Yeah.
But he just had this unbelievable string of hits, and I wanted to work with him a lot. And I'll never forget being before Kenny had his own studio built. He used to work at the studio called the Record Plant, and he was down the hall, and David was sort of in between Malibu studios then, so he was also working at the Record Plant. And I was in there doing, I think, like Celine, one of her records with David, and Nathan East stopped into our session, and I said, well, what are you here to do? And he said, oh, I'm down the hall with Babyface. And I remember being like so jealous, and like, damn, man, leave it to Nathan. Like a week later, we're still working at that same studio, and because Kenny was doing the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. And so he was at the Record Plant for like a few months, every day. And he sent his engineer down, who I knew his engineer, but he came into our session. He said, Kenny wondered if you would come down and play on a tune, And so I came down the next day, and they put up a tune. It was a Whitney Houston tune, and he was real quiet and shy, and just kind of stood over by the door and watched me play, because he's a great guitar player. And not a whole lot of feedback. His tracks are amazing, and he comes up with everything on them and stuff. But my thing, he just wanted me to, maybe he just wanted to see what I was playing through or something like that. Right. But it really worked out that first session. And I came back, did another tune, another tune, another tune. I ended up playing on, that's a great soundtrack, I feel, Waiting to Exhale. So I ended up playing on like six tunes on that record. And that started a whole working with him thing that led to, we did a really cool DVD, MTV. It was supposed to be the MTV Unplugged series, but it was, I think they called it Back to the Club or something like that. But we did it in New York, and Nathan did it. Just great band. We rehearsed every day for 30 days for this show, and because Kenny's, like most artists, want to be over rehearsed. You can't rehearse enough for that guy. And so we did it, and it came off really good, and it sounds really good. If anyone gets a chance to see that DVD, it's a very well done thing, and we're doing all his hits with different artists and stuff. And
Hey,
anyway,
can you see what it's just flashed up on that footer? Whoever Wesley is, Wesley, I'm sorry, I don't know you offhand. It says that DVD changed my life. Well, there it is.
oh,
yeah, nice.
Yeah, Wesley. I worked with some Korean guys that it was like they're, like they wanted everything to sound like the stuff on that day. It was big to them too. And that's when I realized, wow, around the world that there's a lot of people that really dug that DVD.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And Stevie came and played and Clapton. And that's when I first got to meet Eric, and I ended up playing with him a couple of more times after that, but that was a thrill.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. So you've got this other segment of your life, and I'm going to ask you to switch over to jazz. And by the way, I've got Mr. Nathan East just checked in.
We had fun.
There he is. The man himself. Hey, Nathan.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's talk about jazz. And in fact, I've got a few pictures here, but first I want to introduce a friend of yours, kind of a surprise guest. If we can find her and bring her in. Do you recognize this lady?
Oh my God.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
Sandy Shore, everybody.
So
it's thrilling to be here with you. I'm lost in the stories, MT. I'm just lost in them.
Oh man. I have too many, and if it gets boring, it's like
no way.
With my own family, I've hammered all these stories from my youth, and my kids know them by heart, man. It's like, it's kind of the telling, you tell, they're aware of, some kids don't know anything about their parents' childhood and stuff, but hey, Sam. But I've always sort of been, very, like I hold on to these stories and stuff like little gems,
Yes,
because I got to experience it. I mean, hell, I didn't think I was get to do this for the life I ended up having.
Like everyone else who's watching right now, I'm a massive Michael Thompson fan. And when we did the first Jazz Weekender, and Michael's part of Nathan's, band, I remember we had a conversation, MT, and I said, you're amazing, the way you play. I know you have a rock pop background, but the sensibilities are incredible in jazz as well. And he told me that he studied jazz, went to Berkeley, and that was so he could increase his color palette on his rock and pop stuff. Yeah. And that really stuck with me. I thought that's just really brilliant,
Hey, Sandy, will you do me a favor? Nathan is saying hello to you, Sandy, by the way.
Yes,
but I want to make sure everybody on the listening in understands your authority in this genre. How's that? So if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit of your background, it's just a tremendous story.
Absolutely. Well, I started in radio at 15 as a DJ. And shortly after that, I actually played some of the Michael Thompson band's records back in the day when I was doing rock and pop as well. And then ended up getting an amazing gig in Los Angeles on the Wave. And that was the first radio station to really ever commercially play what we call contemporary jazz or fusion. And so that was my introduction to the music. And then I ended up moving up to Monterey, where I'm originally from, to program several stations. And while that was all going on in the 90s, started up some concert production in our beautiful community up here in Northern California. And Nathan and I have known each other since the start of Foreplay many years ago. And we ended up encountering each other at a festival in Oregon. I should also mention to you that I started smoothjazz.com when I moved back to Monterey in the early mid 90s. We started to experiment with streaming audio. And in 2000, smoothjazz.com became the first ever jazz station to broadcast globally on the internet without an FM frequency. So it was an interesting time. It was an adventurous time. And now 21 years later, we have some 20 million listeners around the world in over 200 countries. So It's the little train that could, if you if you think about it, you know. And so Nathan and I popped into each other. We ran into each other at an event, a jazz festival in Oregon, in Portland, that my company was sponsoring. We ended up having dinner that night and talked about doing something fun and different and unique. And that was the Jazz Weekender that we kind of created in our minds that night. A festival that was intimate and personal and featured some of the best musicians in the world. And then rather than swapping out bands and all this big production stuff, what if we made it like for only 250 people and we had the world's greatest band and special guests? And that's when MT was, you know, first choice on guitar, Steve Ferroni on drums, and Greg Fillinganes on keys, and of course Nathan hosting the event. And we invited Boz Scaggs that year, and Mesa, and we had Rick Braun there. So we kind of mixed it up, the best of the pop, best of jazz, contemporary jazz, and it became a thing. You know, it became a thing till COVID.
Yeah, until COVID. Well, Sandy, as you know, Debbie and I did hike up to Carmel right before COVID and saw that last Weekender that you held up in Carmel, and it was so fun. And to your point, the room was so intimate and all the musicians were so approachable. You could talk to them, visit with them, and discuss really everything that was going on. So it was a tremendous treat for anybody who likes that kind of stuff. Now, Nathan, 2 months ago, was on this same show, and he really broke the story about the Tahiti, I'm going to call it boat ride. Let's call it yacht ride.
Yeah.
So Debbie and I, you know, have signed up for it, but I've also had a couple of friends. I've got a great friend, Leslie, out in Houston, who signed up for it. My brother, Bill, I just mentioned, who got jacked up in the car accident. He's signed up for it with his wife, Vivian. So, and we've got a few more who've committed. So it should be a lot of fun, but if you want to talk about that, we'd love to hear about it.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate both of you guys letting me come in and talk about it. We have an amazing travel agency here in Carmel, Monterey area that happened to attend the event just like you did, Mark, and they came up to us afterwards and said, what if we charter a ship in Tahiti, which is a big bucket list destination for so many of us. You know, what Tahiti gets in a year, Hawaii gets in a month. So it's very pristine. It's beautiful. This ship is the MS Paul Gauguin. It was voted by Condé Nast the world's #1 mid-sized cruise ship. Only 300 people on board. That's including the musicians and team. And it will sail from Papeete to Bora Bora, Moorea, and some wonderful private motus. This is April 23rd through the 30th of 2022. We did move it because of COVID. And Nathan's, well, we like to call him the house band. It's just the greatest guys in the world, with Michael and Steve on drums and Greg Fillinganes, you know, on keys. And then of course, Nathan hosting. But on top of that, I'm excited to tell you that Foreplay is getting back together for this cruise with Bob James, and Harvey Mason will be there. And the special guest guitarist is Robin Ford. What's going to happen there, Michael?
Goodness.
What's going to happen there?
That's big.
Oh,
That's
man.
really big.
You know what? I've never met Robin.
Wow.
You know, Larry Carlton, I know him, and I've gotten to meet and hang with my heroes and everything. But Robin, we've just never crossed paths. So I thought, what could be more perfect than to be stuck on a ship with him, man, you know?
I know. And you're going to have to grow your hair back because Robin's got the hair.
Yeah.
You know, he's got the hair. So in addition to that, we've invited Patty Austin, a dear friend of everybody's, and Ray Parker Jr. is coming.
Ray Parker in the house.
And yeah, and we've got some incredible new artists, because on smoothjazz.com, we introduce a lot of new breaking artists, like a wonderkind from, he's originally from South Africa. Justin Lee Schultz will be there, who they're calling the next Stevie Wonder. And this kid's unreal. So he'll be there with his family. His sister plays drums and Justin plays keyboards, but he actually plays everything. So Michael, don't leave your guitar lying around, because
oh man, I want to hear him,
it's dangerous. And then some other folks coming, but it's just going to be an amazing experience. And for more information on this, visit jazzweekender.com. And then you can find the contact info for Carmel Monterey Travel, and we will set you up. I just found out yesterday that they've sold out of a category already. So it's important to book soon, because there's only 300 folks on board the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Sandy, thank you so much. I appreciate
it.
I appreciate the surprise appearance and filling us in. So Okay. Hey, so Nathan, since Nathan is online watching all of this, I do have a picture of you and Nathan in Long Beach.
Oh yeah,
Look at that.
that's cool. Long Beach Jazz.
What a great shot of you guys.
Yeah. My friend that helped me with my gear that day was behind my amp, and he took that. And yeah,
good for you guys. Hey,
Nathan
so
and we're getting to the point where we want the back of our heads shown, not the front.
hey, so I asked you earlier to just play a little riffing, bluesy English rock. Now, if I say go to kind of your favorite jazz licks, what speaks to you?
Well, let me see. Thank you. That's not go-to jazz or anything, but we were talking about how sometimes people hear my guitar stuff in a track and they don't know whether it's a keyboard or a guitar,
Yeah.
And that like became a thing for me. I mean, I love that type of atmospheric stuff in it, and I found that it worked on a lot of pop songs in with all the other kind of parts you have to play.
Right.
But putting this glue that normally a synth pad takes up that place. I mean, it's a lot cooler to me, of course, because I'm a guitar player, if you can do that with a guitar,
Right.
So
Sure.
that's been a part of my thing, almost to the point where when people hear that on a record, they can identify it as being me, because I sort of like, did it a lot, kind of thing. But working on jazz artists' records, the thing when I was talking about how I love pop and my heart is really in hooks and pop, and I've just applied that same thing to jazz artists. I don't play on like straight ahead jazz blowing. I mean, that's another world, but the smooth jazz thing, I've played on so many of those artists' records, starting with Kenny G, and then Dave Koz and Brian Culbertson, and just, I mean, if you look at the top smooth jazz artists over the years, I got to play on their stuff because they wanted the stuff I was playing on David Foster records, not
Right.
they weren't looking for a Joe Pass kind of thing,
Right.
And it's all just music, it's just a good song is a good song. And and my particular soloing style is more of a rock thing, but I can fit that in the jazz world, definitely the smooth jazz world. It's funny because this past year I've had I put out that a tune actually that Sandy promoted, a song called "Feel," a George Duke tune that I just had this idea for doing it, and it got a bunch of airplay and stuff. And this other tune that I did with a guy named Patrick Lamb, it was called Thompson Lamb. And then about four other tunes where I solo in the tune, and but I use a rock style, and everyone else,
Right.
is doing like like the West
Right.
Montgomery kind of
Well,
rock
I
and stuff, which
I
I
was-
love. But I've sort of been able to stay true to my style, and the most recent one I did was for this new sax player, a guy, I think Sandy's promoting him too, a guy named Randall Clark, fantastic sax player, new artist. But he actually put something that none of these other people have done. I mean, if you look on the credits, it says guitarist Michael Thompson, but he said featuring Michael Thompson, because I guess, there has to be a first for everything, right? And I thought, yeah, why not? Because at first I'm thinking, you don't have to do that. I mean, I just take a solo on his song, but he's the main bang on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought that was
So-
really cool that he did that.
So that riff you just played a minute ago, that to me, when I hear that, I hear Lee Ritenour. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Lee is so good at sort of both worlds and stuff. But that's what I was talking about. Like, your heart is in it. I think he was always aspiring to be a jazz player, and the rock came along with it, as opposed to a rock guy that became, interested in jazz like I did.
So let me throw something out to you. When I think of foreplay, and they've been through 3 guitars, I think of Larry Carlton as being the rocker and bluesy guy overlaying on jazz. Is that a fair assessment? He's more rock than say Lee.
Yeah, not rock so much as, I mean, Larry over the years has gotten jazzier.
Yes.
When I fell in love with his playing was when he was, playing on Joni Mitchell and Steely Dan, and I was buying those records and just like wearing them out, seeing what Larry did on that, and the Crusaders. I kind of was getting my hands on everything he had played, and he had that again. It goes to that pop thing. He had the bluesy bending and that bluesy sort of approach, but made it, his choice of notes made it work on pop records and stuff. But over the years, I noticed he got maybe more jazzy than the rock way. Yeah, in the 80s with his solo albums and stuff. I mean, he was rocking, for sure. Yeah. But over the years, that became more of the jazzier approach.
Yeah. Hey, so a few more questions for you, man. The clock is just going by so fast. It's such a shame. First of all, let's talk about the Michael Thompson Band. And I'm going to confess, I hadn't heard any of your music until we started talking about this show. And now I love so many of the songs you had. You had a real big hit off that first record. And what's your lead singer's name? Moon Calhoun?
Moon Calhoun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big pipes.
Cool sort of circle of life coming around. Moon was the singer on that album. Just a fantastic Steve Perry style singer. And he had a tragic bicycle accident in 98. And he's been in a wheelchair ever since, Still, I mean, I look to him as like, man, I don't know if I could have kept the great attitude that he's had, and he's been an inspiration to a lot of people, and still sings great, right? And so I had this idea earlier this year of like, we should do an album together. There's a label called Frontiers that I've done 5 or 6 records in the last 10 years for, who loved that MTV album. They love Moon. They love the idea of him singing and stuff. And so I thought, man, it's a lot of work, but I want to do that for Moon. Do a new album of new songs, but have him, sing, be the lead singer on. And so, when I told him about it, it was like, he said, Mike, I can't thank you enough. I need this so much. And I'm thinking, wow, man, it's always great to be able to do something good for someone, but he's amazing. It's not like, a handout or anything, but so we're enjoying doing it. It's a lot of work to write 10 tunes and stuff. We've got about 4 things going, but this label's really into it. And the great thing about them, they give you a fairly small record deal, but everyone has their own studio. So you put your money into mixing and stuff. But they have worldwide distribution, and they put a really nice package together for there's still people out there that buy CDs in that world They call it AOR, album oriented rock, melodic rock. And I mean, maybe we'll talk about it, but 3 years ago, I got to go over and play for these people, like this thing called the Frontiers Fest, where they have artists from their label come, and we did a headlining thing. It's a 3-day festival.
Was that in Milan?
Excuse me?
Was that in Milan?
Yeah, I think we have a picture of one of at the show, but I got to meet a bunch of these people that have been fans. Yeah, that's a
there we go.
It was the full on. I got to be a rock star. I mean, they were chanting MTB before we came on. I'm like, I'm in a dream here. Someone wake me up. And they knew the words to the songs. They were singing along, and And that was that dream that I had, that we all had, of being rock stars, you know, that when I was a teenager. Although pretty early on, I got to go in the studio. I had my father was in the advertising business in New York City, and one of his clients was RCA. And so we had done this little demo tape in our garage my brother and I had this band, you know, and so my father dropped it off in the A&R department of RCA. You know, it's like the last thing in the world you would think you'd get any response from. But there was one of the young A&R guys liked our tunes and liked the band, and so he managed us and brought us into the RCA in New York City, the big studio, RCAC. He got like downtime at their studios for us to go in. So at 16 years old, I was able to be in like a real studio and cutting our tunes and stuff. And I loved it. A lot of guys in rock bands, they do their bands and their gigs and their rehearsals, but then they go in the studio and they clam up or the red light fever, where they're intimidated by the process of recording. But I wasn't. And I think you're either one or the other. I mean, people get comfortable with it, but their heart is more in just the live performing thing. But I love the whole idea of, what's better than being able to overdub on a song and put your ideas down on it and stuff.
Right.
And so that whole thing appealed to me. So early on, I had this dream of being a studio guy too. I didn't really even know what one was, but I read Guitar Player magazine articles about Larry Carlton and stuff, and it's like, that's what I want to do. But I did still want to be a rock star too somehow. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so I have one more picture for you here. It's called the Sunset Sound.
Yes, the most recent picture.
So I know that this was kind of memorable in a couple of ways, but certainly this was maybe the coming out party for the band of brothers.
It was, the Nathan, Steve Ferroni, Greg Fillinganes, and I, over the years, we've done a lot of stuff together, and we've cut a lot of stuff. And I'm just so used to seeing those guys on a session, and we've played so much together that it's really like second nature. It's not like getting used to a new guy or something like that.
Right.
But your session, which that was for, cutting in this beautiful song called 4 Years After, which the world's going to find out about fairly soon because you have a whole great video and stuff to go with it. But that was the excuse for us to all get together and make music. And it was really cool. That was just a few weeks ago at Sunset Sound, which I hadn't been to in 20 years, you know. And it was really good. And I was thinking as I was driving to that session, as I was driving to Hollywood, I used to do this like every day for 35 years, you know. Yeah. So it was a really kind of cool deja vu, nostalgic thing for me. And then once you're there, you're just back in that mode. Let's cut this track.
Well, you guys were hugging in there for an hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
No, it was nice to see the reunion happen. And so if the audience didn't quite hear that, I am going to confess that I did encourage all these, well, I'm going to say the top artists in the world, top studio musicians in the world, to come down to Sunset Sound, and that was the last week of May. And we spent a little time in that studio. And Michael, you laid down some phenomenal tracks along with the other guys. I mean, it was just an unbelievable session and really unbelievable experience for me.
Yeah.
And then to walk in and have Alan Parsons take control of the rocket ship, the Alan Parsons.
Hello. How did you swing that, by the way?
Well, Tom Brooks, who was there, just said, I love the song. I love the idea. And would you mind if I played it for Alan Parsons? And I said, wait a second, who asked that question? Of course I wouldn't mind. And he says, well, good, because I already did. And he's going to come down and produce it.
Wow.
He loved the song, loved the idea. And so really phenomenal. So
that was, I mean, if people don't know who Alan Parsons, he's had this whole, the Alan Parsons project where they had a string of hits, right. But he he did Dark Side of the Moon. That's all you need to know, man. And a ton of other stuff. But he is a true iconic heavyweight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
a nice guy and a really great engineer. I mean, he's not one of those guys that, you know, is all pretentious about his stuff. He just sits down and gets great sounds and knows what fits on a record. And he has all my respect.
and I don't want to give it away yet, Michael, but he made that one comment about the end of the song, if you recall, and he was so quiet and said, "Mark, I don't want to take you down a dirt road if you want to go down here, but I hear this," and he was absolutely right about it. There's just a musical magic.
Yeah. No, it's a thrill to me still after, you know, all these years and working with so many great people and people you only dreamed of working with, to, you know, do something like that session with doing your tune with that band with Alan Parsons. It's like, you know, pinch me.
Yeah.
I'm still like a reverent teenager when it comes to that stuff. It's like, you know, it just doesn't get any better, because you realize it's like people like that have lasted through the years. You know, they didn't get there with a haircut, you know. They're really good at what they do, and they're really, you know, you can learn from them. And that's the amazing thing about getting a chance to work with people like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I agree. How do you think I felt? I mean, I was just surrounded by superstars. It was really special. Hey, I have one more picture, because you pulled out a trick in that session. You pulled out a little device. I'm going to call it a hammer. I don't know what the EBO. I think you taught me it's called an EBO.
Yeah.
And you created, I don't know if the audience can see that little trick he's got in his hand.
Yeah.
But you made some incredible sounds.
Yeah, I just happen to have one sitting right here. It's one of those things you don't use it that much, but, you know, when you do, it's just the right sort of magical kind of. Oh. You know, that kind of thing.
And if somebody didn't know better, they would say that was a synthesizer. They would.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think I was telling you earlier that I played on a couple of Michael Jackson's sessions, but the one where he was actually there, where he stopped in at the session, I was in the middle of doing an EBO part on this song called the Earth Song. And it was a dark studio. It was in New York. They flew me and all my gear and everything to New York, and the Sony studio. And Michael had like 5 studios going, and he'd just go from one to another, you know, a Hit Factory, Sony, all these things. And so you didn't know if he was going to show up or like, you know, what time he was going to show up or anything. So David Foster was producing that tune, and which Steve played drums on it, funnily enough. You know, a lot of people like Mike. I think Michael cut that tune like a few times, and all these musicians, you know, can say they played on it and stuff. Yeah. But I got it late on the thing. It's like he called up David and said, I need you to produce this and stuff. So we did this, and so the room was dark, and David said, how about putting an EBO on the intro of this thing? So I got it out and I was playing, and I'm looking down at my guitar in my own little world then I had hair hanging down and stuff. But when I looked up, Michael Jackson had come in while I was playing, and he was sitting like right next to me, man. Like, you know, and so, you know, we shake, he didn't have the glove on, and he was really fascinated with this EBO thing. Yeah. So there I am explaining to Michael Jackson what this thing is and how it does it. And he's like totally fascinated by it, heard what we were doing, loved it. And then I was like fiddling with my stuff, and I turned around and he was gone.
Game over. By the way,
that was it.
Yeah, I don't play guitar, and I'm fascinated with that deal. I'm gonna have to go look it up.
Yeah.
Really a cool device.
Right.
Hey, so what we set up is the track we laid down, I've got a version of it without vocals. And so what we're going to do is run a little bit of it. And so what I want the audience to hear is maybe the first several bars and hear all the experimentation that is going on in guitar. And if I go like this, audience, and you hear these just great little notes up top, that's all Michael. So let's get that running and see what happens here. Right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it really sets a mood.
Incredible stuff. Yeah. You know, it was so fun because I heard strings, I heard a little maybe fat synth, I think of like Oberheim or something, but
yeah,
you put it in there and you said, no, here's where we're going. And it's unbelievable.
Yeah. The trick with me is getting me on the record before the synth player, you know, and it's like, oh, we don't need that now. You know, it's like you covered those bases, you know, kind of thing.
Well, my darling wife, Debbie, said that you would be the first one to arrive at the studio and the last one to leave, and you would put down tracks all night long. And you kind of did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it needed a little extra overdub session. So we just did that after the guys. You can tell it's a fun session when the other guys like hang around for hours after it. It's like I'm there recording for another couple of hours, but like Nathan and
everybody stuck around.
Right? Yeah, everyone was like still around when I got
through. Well, listen, thank you so much for that. And Sandy, are you still out there? And Terry, you still out there?
Still here.
All right. Well, listen, I want to say thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything. I mean, thank you for the song. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your wisdom, the guitar lessons. Incredible. I'm going to say inspirational, completely inspirational.
Oh, man.
Sandy, thank you for the surprise visit today. That's really exciting. Love your show. It's great. And I'm very excited about the trip and really excited with all the programs you're putting out there. And you put really a smooth jazz out there on the map in a big way. You've done a tremendous job.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And Tara, you know my deal. I've got a closet full of your wine, and I'm always looking for the next box. So,
well, and then also, Mark, for your group of music fans that are out there watching, we do have a promo code for them. Gets you a discount off of wines when you go to hopefamilywines.com and use Backstage as the promo password, the little promo code. And you definitely won't regret it. And can I mention something? I did get to sneak listen to the song that we're talking about 4 years after. And it's you can feel the musicians that, that came together. You can feel it immediately just in that intro. You know, your heart beats a little faster and you start to take deeper breaths the whole way through that song. Lyrically, the depths. I mean, I still don't know what it's about, but I'm just like, I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait to really fully engulf myself in that song. Definitely touching.
Yeah, it's a powerful tune. It really is.
It really is.
I'm not just saying that, Mark.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. Now what do I say? I'm not even sure what to say. But but thank you both. I'll tell you what. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to make a deal with you guys. I love all you guys. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, audience, for joining. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and we'll hear the track. I'm going to call it the track without the lead vocals because I want to leave the melody and the words out for now. But as we wind this thing down, we'll just close with the track going out. So, Sandy, thank you once again. We'll see you soon, lady. Tara, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Michael, I will see you and talk to you very soon.
Great.
And thank you, brother. It's really been super fun.
My pleasure, man.
And Nathan, if you're still out there, buddy, thank you. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Take care.